that is one of another big thing that people have problems with is boundaries. And the example I give them
Uh-huh.
is they're like, you know, somebody comes up to you and they're like, how do you feel about this? And you're like, well, kind of. And that person, what that person hears is, oh, she's on the fence. I can push her where I want her to be.
Uh-huh.
Right? I came up and I said, hey, how do you feel about this? And you're like, no,
Not happening.
I'm not going to sit there and try to convince you. I mean, that was a pretty, but why? Why were you able to say no in that way with that amount of energy behind it and conviction? Because you know something.
Mhm.
There's a there right. You can't convince yourself out of it. No one can convince you out of it.
Yeah. Can I give a
Right?
quick example of that that just came up
Yep.
for me?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely.
so for example, I'm interviewing people to be part of this community out in the woods, and this lady who's beautiful, full of energy, full of excitement, calls me up and says, "Hey, so I was reading your substance policy about, alcohol, drugs, and whatnot, and my partner, kind of drinks. Do you think that I could still be part of your community?" And I go, "How much does he drink, sweetie?" He's like, "Oh, every day." And I go, I'm so sorry. I know exactly what comes with like everyday usage that you don't want to talk about and you don't want to be a part of. Like I've lived in that. I'm creating a safe space for small children.
Yeah.
That's not part of my definition of small children. Like nobody's going to push me on that. I've lived that. I'm
Yeah.
saying no, 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 no. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas other people, if they haven't lived it, or myself 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever, when I got myself into all that trouble in the first place,
Yeah.
didn't understand, didn't have the knowledge of the consequences of saying yes to those things. And everybody gets to make their own choices. People can drink every day if that's where they're at, if that's what they want, if that's what they're choosing for their life. But for me, it was like, mm-mm, that solidness of that. No, I was like, elbows out, no freaking way, man.
Yeah.
So go
Yeah.
ahead, go on.
No, no, and that's because you have a belief and
Yeah,
you understand that belief,
yeah,
right? There's no second guessing as to, well, where did this belief come from? Is this my belief or is this somebody else's belief? Should I be this hard on myself or should I be this hard on other people? Should this be a line in the sand, right?
yeah,
If you understand why that line is there, no one can make you cross it and no one can cross it unless you allow them to,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
And it wasn't you asked the question. You're like, well, how often does he drink?
Yeah,
Right. So you were at least open to having the conversation about it.
yeah,
It wasn't like, hey, you read the policy.
yeah.
Why are you asking?
Well,
Right. You were
on the
like,
side, I love
all right, let's see what are we talking about here? It's like, oh, every year on our anniversary, we have a glass of wine. It's like, all right, I can
yeah,
see it. I can see it. But yeah, every day it's kind of like, okay, yeah,
yeah.
that's
And interested in talking about it maybe next year. Not right now, and it's like
yeah,
for me, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And it's
yeah,
really just because of the experiences and my beliefs and my ideas around that. Other people might really want to have communities that involve that on a regular basis, a daily basis. It's not an issue for them. But my personal experiences have shown me like the place that I want to create, the place that feels safe for me, right? So as we were talking about needs and wants, it's like
yeah,
the safety. So I have a need for safety, and my
yes,
need for safety includes not having alcoholics in my life,
yep,
right?
yep,
Or in my immediate living situation, right? Like in my immediate living situation.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
nobody's gonna talk me out of it.
and again, needs. If you understand what you need and why you need it, it would be a really, really hard press for anybody to change that for you,
Mhm.
right? So when you start applying that now to all the areas of your life, all the different parts of yourself, right?
Mhm.
It's really hard for somebody. Yeah, it's really hard for somebody to say, "Oh, you don't really need that. You just think you do." It's like, well, yeah, okay. You're right. I do think I do. And I'm going to go think I do over here while I'm doing that. And you can go do whatever you're going to do. Right. You're not going to talk me out of it. And least of
Yeah.
all, and here's the problem is most people, they are their biggest problem,
Mm.
right? They're the ones talking themselves out of it.
Been there, done that. Yeah, for
They're
sure.
not letting other people talk themselves out of it. They're not like, "Oh, honey, you don't have to make dinner tonight. It's fine. We'll just order in," right? It's more like, "How do I convince myself that I don't need to that I don't need to make dinner tonight and I can just order in?"
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's because once you're convinced, you'll convince other people
Yeah.
that it's okay,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This is self-sabotage and we allow it to happen, which is the craziest part. So I get people to, tell me about self-sabotage, right? And be like, now just while you're explaining this to me, I want you to stop when you start sounding like you're crazy.
Okay.
And they're like, okay. And so they start explaining to me the process of how they talk themselves out of doing the things that they want to do. And usually they're just like, oh God, I get it. I'm like, yeah, okay, we're done here. And then I give them the assignment and they're like, yeah, I'll do this, no problem.
There's so much more for you over in the Joygasmic Life membership. Become a bulletproof mom with us. Learn the tips and tricks and skills you need to recover from your postpartum mental health journey and learn the tools of Joygasmic Alchemy so you can have the kind of birth you've been dreaming of.